Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Uh, this is a really exciting webinar for us. This has been a topic that has been becoming more and more on people's minds, I would say, in the past couple of months. And so today we're talking about low cost and low latency SAP integration options, specifically for Microsoft Fabric using open mirroring. So my name is Tyler Reynolds. I'm sales director here at Theobald Software in our US location. And I'm joined today by Christoph Schuler. And hello, Christoph. I'll let you say hello to the audience and introduce yourself.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Christoph Schuler. I'm the general manager for Theobald Software, working with Tyler at our US location in Seattle.
Good. And just as we get started, here is the agenda that we'll cover today. So I know a lot of you who are here with us today are familiar faces, but there's also some maybe some new folks here as well. And so we'll get started with just a brief overview of who we are at Theobald Software, if you aren't already familiar with us. And really what the topic is today, it's really SAP data integration into the Microsoft Fabric environment. So we'll touch a little bit on what that first part is, why it's important, the data integration extraction piece from SAP, and then we'll spend a lot of the session, most of the session, focused on the Microsoft Fabric environment, and specifically using open mirroring. And then Christoph will show our solution, show how it works, talk about the architecture a little bit. If you do have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to use the Q&A area that's on the side of the little the attendee box on the right there. You can type those in at any time, and we'll either get to them during the presentation. If we aren't able to touch on those, we'll get to them at the end, and we'll also have some live Q&A time at the end. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and get started again. For those of you who maybe aren't familiar with Theobald Software or what we do, it's probably helpful to just give a background of really what we're all about here. So Theobald Software, we have been in the SAP integration business now for 20 years, just over 20 years. And in that time, we've focused really on SAP, only on SAP as a data source. And really what we do is help organizations, help companies who are on SAP bring that data into outside environments. This is now more commonly some sort of cloud storage solution, but we also support going to traditional databases and directly to analytics tools. We'll get more into what that is later on, but you can think of us really as an extract and load solution for SAP. And as you can see here, we have customers worldwide. In the past 20 years, we've worked with many organizations across all industries, so we don't focus on a certain vertical. But really what all of our customers have in common is that they use SAP and they need that data outside. So let's, before we really dive into our tools and solutions too much, let's talk about first what we mean by SAP data integration. It's sort of a really broad term that can mean a lot of things. And so, maybe Christoph, as we start, as a product manager and someone who really helps build our solutions, what are the main reasons that customers even want this type of data integration to have their SAP data outside of that environment?
Yeah. It's very important for customers to have access to their SAP data outside of the SAP environment. And that's really a core of what we do at Theobald Software, and that's really core to our business. And that ranges from traditional or standards use cases that have been around for quite some time. If you think about classic BI use cases around reporting, customers want to report on their SAP data, build dashboards, drive some data analytics. But also, there's entirely new use cases around AI, for instance, for customers that are looking at AI or ML solutions. SAP data plays a critical role in those areas as well.
Mm-hmm. Right, and yeah, and that's what we see. Talking with customers I work with, all of those are very important to their business. And it's one thing to just say, yes or no, we are able to extract our SAP data. That's only really one part of it, though. Another piece, which is equally as important, is not just checking the box saying it's possible, but companies need to be able to do this efficiently and in a way that works for them so that they can utilize that data properly. What are some of the things, Christoph, that some challenges or roadblocks that companies might have when, just because they have maybe a solution for SAP extraction, what are some of the roadblocks they might face or some common challenges?
Yeah. Like you said, it's one thing to bring data out, but it's maybe another thing to do it well and efficiently, and in a way that's also affordable. So what we put together here are a few things we keep hearing from customers. I'm sure you as well, Tyler, in your conversations with customers. And the customer needs are evolving or have evolved over time. For instance, if we take the real-time aspect, that's becoming more and more important for customers to replicate data from SAP very efficiently and with very little latency into the environment where the users, the end users, want to consume that data and use that data in different ways. So that's a key aspect. And I think we talk about this later in the presentation around our table CDC capabilities. So the ability to replicate change data very quickly and often is really important and is a prerequisite to enable, for instance, real-time replication. But there's a couple other areas. Yeah, I know we had a lot of customers, also partners, ask us about the SAP ODP note. Tyler, if you want to add a few comments there to how we respond to that.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I saw there was a question that came in about that, and you can see we have it listed on this slide here just because it's becoming such a common topic for our customers. We can dive into details on exactly how our tools address that after at the end. But for now, our tools, we're aware of this note, and the solutions we provide are able to access that SAP data in a way that's still compliant with SAP, specifically that note. Not only compliant, but our tools are also SAP certified. We actually just renewed our certification at the end of 2024. So high level, yes, we are aware of this ODP note, and we have addressed it. Like I said, we'll get into more details maybe towards the end after we touch on the fabric topic. By the way, we also had a webinar on this just last month that we can also share for those of you here who didn't see that and want to see the recording.
Yeah. We'll touch on that and to also reemphasize the tools that we're showing today. Our tools are compliant with SAP's guidelines. That's important to us because it's important to our customers. So both our certification, but also staying compliant with SAP notes is, of course, a priority for us.
Okay, good. So that hopefully that sets up the conversation a little bit about, again, why is SAP data integration important topic in the first place, and with that, maybe now we'll sort of jump into the the main topic for today, which is the Microsoft Fabric environment.
Yeah. We'll give a quick overview of Fabric. This is actually our second webinar that we're doing around Microsoft Fabric. And with Fabric, many of you might be familiar with it. Microsoft has really unified a lot of capabilities and what they call workloads. You see them on this slide. It has pipeline capabilities with Data Factory. There's data engineering capabilities. They just added data warehouse and database capabilities, all the way to real-time intelligence and Power BI. So all of that is now offered under one umbrella, in one solution, if you will, in one SaaS solution. So customers don't have to switch between different services in Azure. Everything's in one UX. And a key characteristic of Fabric is also what you see at the bottom of this slide. It's the common data store, which is called OneLake. This is Fabric's data lake. And from all these different workloads, you can connect to one data set, one data store. This has a number of advantages. This avoids data silos that many customers have developed over time because they needed the data in different places. So often what you do is not only do you end up extracting the data perhaps multiple times from your source system like SAP, but you also persist the data in multiple places. And that's not ideal because you have to manage the security around that data. Data needs to be governed. And plus you put additional load on your source system. So having the data in one place and then service different workloads and different user personas with the same set of data has really great advantages.
Yeah, right. And like Christoph had mentioned earlier, this is sort of our second part of our Fabric solution. So in a previous webinar, we talked about how our tools can land data directly into OneLake, just for the reasons that Christoph has just mentioned. But there's other functionality or possibilities within Fabric. And one of those features is what's known as mirroring or open mirroring. And that can also be very popular or desired, especially when talking about change data or incremental loads. So maybe Christoph, if you can provide some more information on what mirroring is and how it can help companies with their data replication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so with mirroring, Microsoft has put in functionality into Fabric to automatically replicate data into Fabric from all kinds of data sources. So Microsoft has built mirroring capabilities for SQL Server. I think they just announced Oracle and maybe have Snowflake on the roadmap. So common non-Microsoft data sources that you can easily replicate in a continuous manner into what's called a Microsoft Fabric mirroring database. So that's a database type that exists in Fabric that enables this continuous replication of data. And what Microsoft has done is they have opened up this environment for third parties like us, like Theobald Software, to add other data sets, for instance, for SAP. And that's what's called the open mirroring interface or the open mirroring functionality within Fabric. So we have utilized this, and the way it works basically is we enable the CDC feed. You see this on the slide in the lower left corner. We, with our tools, enable the reliable CDC feed from SAP, and we put the data into what's called a landing zone into Fabric. And we put it in the right format so Microsoft Fabric can interpret the data. And then through a continuous process that is called here the mirroring engine, it runs continuously. The data can then be merged automatically into an existing set of tables or into an existing database. And that makes it really easy for customers to continuously replicate change data from a source into an existing data set without having to do a lot of scripting, without having to do any development work, really. And we will show this in the demo in a few minutes, how easy it is to set that up. So I think this is a really great feature. I think it's the only data lake out there that has this type of synchronization capabilities without having to do a lot of manual work. And our tool is fully compatible with it, and the feature is available today.
Mm-hmm. Right, and so again, with this feature, open mirroring, it differs a little bit from going directly in just to a OneLake environment. So, with OneLake, which we also support, as mentioned, we had a webinar on this before. You're basically landing files in the OneLake data lake. And then with open mirroring, it works a little bit differently where once you land any data, in most cases, this will be some sort of change data or incremental updates. Open mirroring will take care of that post-processing of the data and automatically update the existing tables. So, so that will provide a little bit of information on how we utilize open mirroring. And now at this point, we'll sort of jump into the tool here. This might be a good time. We can also address that, the ODP strategy here as well. But what you see on the screen is really high level architecture of the tool Xtract Universal. This is what we'll be talking about today, and what Christoph will show in the demo here in just a moment. And like we said at the beginning, really what this is an extract and load tool for SAP. So you see at the bottom, SAP is always our source. And really what we provide is the capability to get to all sorts of different data, different types of objects or views. This can be from various systems, whether you're still on ECC, if you're on S/4HANA, or utilizing one of the corresponding BW systems. We provide you options to get to the data that you need. And some of these icons that you see on the screen here, these each represent a different component or different way to extract data. Today we'll be focusing a lot on the change data or incremental loads, which you'll see in this table CDC component. That really pairs well with Microsoft open mirroring for being able to push those changes out into the landing zone, and then let the Microsoft technology take care of updating the tables for you. This also, there was a question that was asked if the real-time replication applies to S/4HANA. So yes, all of these components or capabilities that you see here are valid for all of the systems listed, whether that's ECC or S/4HANA. While we're on the topic of the different components, again, this might be a good time to address that, the ODP note. So you can see here, one of our icons or one of our components is for ODP, protocol over RFC. And this is what the SAP note addresses, where they no longer want their customers using ODP over RFC. However, any of the other components or icons you see here, none of these other components go through the ODP server or go through those providers. Depending on which of these you're looking at, table or table CDC, for example, will go directly to application tables, so you're not using ODP at all. Another option that you'll have, this icon is not listed, but will be shortly, is we're also offering an ODP over OData. So you can still get to your ODP objects if that's of interest to you, but you'll be able to get that through the OData API, which is still permitted by SAP. And then one thing to mention, again, we are certified by SAP for third-party integration. Mentioned that earlier, but just the way we connect to the SAP system, we do this in the context of a user, of an SAP user account, with various sign-in options there. And like I mentioned before, we have just recertified at the end of last year, and so of course that is, in the time period where that ODP note has already been existing, and so we've been certified even though that note is released. Okay. Okay, there's a few questions in here about CDC. I think those can be better addressed when we hop into the demo. So you can show that, Christoph, and I think maybe now is a good time for us to maybe transition into the tool.
Sure. Okay, so I will share my screen. Okay. Am I visible?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so I did notice there were quite a few CDC related questions, so I'm going to try to address them as I go through the demo. And if not, we will definitely get to it in the Q&A. I'm going to start in the Fabric environment here. And this is my automation workspace that I have set up for my SAP data integration. And you can see here I have a lakehouse. I also have a mirrored database that I'm going to use in this demonstration. And I also can have semantic models and other things in here. So for this demonstration, I'm going to focus on the mirrored database that exists here as a separate object. Yeah, so Microsoft has put this a little bit outside of the lakehouse itself. We do, I think we mentioned it earlier, also integrate with the lakehouse in the format of files. Yeah, so you can replicate any data as Parquet files, JSON files, CSV files into the lakehouse, and then also put them into the Delta table format in the lakehouse from there. What we're talking about here today is our change data capture capabilities that will auto-replicate the changes into a mirrored database. So let's move over to our mirrored database. I have a customer data set here from SAP. I called it customer Delta. And this very much looks like a standard SQL database. Yeah, I have different tables based on different SAP data extracts, including my customer Delta here. Further down below, you could actually take a look at the uploaded files. This is what we earlier talked about, the landing zone. So this is where we place the files, and then the replication process in Fabric takes care of the merging into the actual tables. You also see at the top there's a way to stop the entire replication. That means the mirrored database functionality would stop synchronizing the data. You can at any point restart that, and then the process will continue to run. The other thing I can do here in Fabric is I can switch to a SQL Analytics endpoint that allows me to work with the data. This could be from any of the workloads that we discussed earlier. This could be for data analytics. This could be for visualizations in Power BI. All kinds of use cases are available to me through these endpoints. So we're looking at the same table here. I can also get a view into the schema of this table, and I'm just bringing in a few customer fields from the SAP table. So let's switch over to Xtract Universal, our data extraction tool for SAP data. Tyler just introduced the tool, including its different data extraction types for SAP. I'm going to focus this demonstration on table CDC. So what I have set up here is a data extract that I also called customer delta here, using the table CDC component against an S4HANA system. I think there was one or two questions about, is this available for S4HANA? Yes, definitely. This is available for S4HANA as well as ECC. You can use this table CDC function, and I'm connected as my destination to a Fabric Mirror database. So let's first take a look at how this is set up, this table CDC functionality. It's pretty easy to set up. You basically pick a table. In my case, I chose KNA1. This can also be a transactional table, AC.DOCA, VBAK, what have you. It works with any table. And then my CDC status is initialized now. This is always the first step that you do. You basically, after you pick the table, you run this data extract once to initialize it. Once it's initialized, change tracking continuously happens in SAP. I could close this entire environment. I could shut down this server. Change tracking would continue. It is not interrupted in the SAP system. Over here, I'm choosing what fields do I want to pull from my change data. So I only selected some of the customer relevant fields. In this case, I didn't need the whole data set, but you can also choose everything, of course. There was also a question around how do you deal with initial loads? So there's an option. It's grayed out now because I already have this initialized, but there's an option initially that you could set for extract the table on first run, meaning extract the entire table on first run. I've actually done this initially over here to populate this table. In that case, we will insert the entire data set into the mirrored database, and the tool, the component, will automatically switch then to only replicate the changes going forward. Yeah, so you don't have to uncheck or go back here or do anything. That happens automatically. Now, we recommend to do this only if you have smaller to mid-sized tables. If you have very large tables, let's say millions of rows, it's better to separate these two processes. So you would do the historic or full load using the table component, and you can do this in multiple chunks, if you will. And then at the same time, you can initialize a table CDC component on the same table, and then merge the changes into that same table. So that's possible to use both components for these two use cases. So this is a pretty simple setup, and I want to briefly show also the destination setup. This data extract is connected to the Fabric Mirror database. If I look at my destination and see how this is configured, what you do here is to authenticate. You go into your Azure Cloud Portal and you find your tenant and client ID and authenticate using that, using those two IDs. And then all you have to do is specify the landing zone. So that's available from this environment here. If I look at if I go back a step here, if I look at my mirrored database automation, I think I'm in the wrong screen right now. But when you set up the mirrored database, there's a property up here that you can simply copy and paste, which represents the landing zone of your Fabric Mirrored database. So that's all you need. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to introduce a change in our S4 system. We're going to choose two customer records. Let's choose this customer. underscore LO8. And we're going to introduce a change that we know is represented in table KNA1. For instance, on the general data tab, I have the company name. I also have the street address. For instance, here, where's my street? Okay, I don't see that here. So I'm going to change
I
the
think you
name
just
here.
scrolled by it.
Yeah, so I'll just change the name to Inc. And then let's choose another company, maybe L10. Same idea here. Let's change this one to Main Street, for example, 200 or something. Yeah, so we introduced two changes on two customer records. What we'll do next now is we will run this data extraction on the CDC object. You as the customer determine how often you want to run that. And maybe you have different requirements depending on what the table is. Some change data captures, you want to synchronize maybe every 5 or 10 minutes because you need a real-time data set. For others, it might be sufficient to run it maybe once an hour or twice a day or something. So the tool is very flexible there. You can have different intervals in terms of what the data source is, and have different intervals on different source tables. So I'm going to run this now. I should see two records, sorry. Two rows were extracted, and the data is now being placed on the landing zone. And I'm going to do a refresh here on my, here is the landing zone, by the way. I'm going to switch back to my SQL endpoint and go back to my customer table. There it is. And if I sort this, and I look at my two customers, was LO8, Veracity Tools. That's now 1000 Main Street. And I think I just changed this to Inc. And I changed this one to 200 Main Street. Yeah, so the data was updated. It was merged automatically into an existing customer data set, and it happened within seconds. Yep, so that was a brief demo of Xtract Universal, our tool, how you can do change data capture against your SAP ERP source, and how the data is instantly merged into the Fabric mirroring database. So I'll stop sharing and turn it back over to Tyler.
Yeah, and like Christoph said during that, it's really easy to set this up. There's no requirement to have an SLT server or anything maintained. Our tool takes care of everything on the SAP side needed for initializing these change data capabilities. Okay, so this again, as mentioned before, we are not focused on a certain vertical or industry. We serve customers worldwide throughout, and you can see a sampling here. You can see some of these logos are from pretty much every area, every industry. So that's really what we wanted to show you today. We have a lot more information that goes into further details on this, specifically talking about our integration with Microsoft Fabric. Again, open mirroring, which Christoph showed today, is one of our capabilities. And then we also have integration directly into OneLake as well. If you scan this QR code on the page here, it will take you to an area where you can view a white paper that we have on this subject. There's also, if you wanted to speak with us individually for a consultation to maybe just ask any questions or maybe review your landscape to see if our tools might be a fit for you. If you scan this QR code, there's a button to contact us as well. Yeah, so with that, we'll go ahead and go to the Q&A section. So if you haven't already, please feel free to post in your questions from the Q&A area.
Yeah.
And then
I'm just scanning through some of them. It looks like I think some we already have answered. There's a few new ones. Is open mirroring out of preview? Open mirroring is still in preview with Microsoft. We closely monitor that, of course. We did actually ask Microsoft just before FabCon the status about that. They had plans apparently to release it for FabCon, but that did not happen. But we expect it to be very imminent or in the near future.
yeah, and that's if you were to, for example, look at this in our tools or go to our online documentation, you might see that we have the open mirroring listed as beta, and that's only because it's still in preview by Microsoft. So the functionality that Christoph showed is fully ready to go. It's just says beta because it's still in Microsoft preview.
There was a question around the initial load. I think we covered that during the demo. If not, please please chime in. I'm happy to review that again. CDC is supported in S/4HANA. Yes. There was another question related to ODP and the fact that we're adding an ODP over OData component. Yeah, so we will be compliant with that note for customers that still want to rely on ODP. And yes, the person asked about performance. We know OData is not as performant as RFC connectivity, especially for larger data volumes. At the same time, what we're hearing from customers is that for small and medium-sized data volumes, so we're talking maybe thousands of records, tens of thousands of records, maybe up to 100,000, works fine. So we have received that feedback as well. So for some Delta scenarios with small to medium-sized data sets, it's fine to do that. At the same time, I can also share that we're looking at additional capabilities to extract CDS views and Delta-enabled CDS views over the more performant RFC protocol without being dependent on ODP. That's in progress in our development at the moment. There's still a bit of research we have to do, but we think we can have a very interesting and compelling solution here in the market.
Yeah, and again, like I mentioned before, we had a webinar on this this topic a couple weeks back that has a lot of details on that ODP note. So you'll all get a follow-up email from us with a link to this presentation today. And I'll also go ahead and just put in a link to that previous webinar as well for those of you who are interested in that. So yeah, whether you want to review today's information or go look at that, the OData webinar, that will be on the follow-up to this webinar here.
Yeah. There's another question around, does CDC work with KONV? So KONV in the ACC system is a cluster table, and no, it does not work with cluster tables. That changes in the S4 system. For those of you that are on S4, tables like BSEG, other tables are no longer cluster tables, so that limitation goes away. But if you're on ECC and we're talking cluster tables, then that is not supported with table CDC. Can you explain how the change capture works? I can talk a little bit about that. The mechanics behind it is very similar to how SLT works from SAP. So everything works through the application layer in SAP. We don't access the database. We don't need log access to the database or anything of that nature. And to track the changes reliably, we use triggers in the SAP system. You can manage those. Every time you initialize on the table, the trigger is set. And once you delete the resources, that will be removed. So that's at a high level how it works.
And that's Christoph. That's all done through our application, right? There's no
Correct.
need to go into your SAP system and create these manually.
That is correct. Yeah. Question if this also works with Delta Q. So Delta Q is another of our Delta capable components. And at the moment, we have the mirroring integration with table CDC. We will add our other Delta components in the coming weeks or months. So ODP over OData and Delta Q will follow. So that's coming, not available today.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Did the ODP tables using OData also allow the same setup for the Fabric OneLake endpoint? Yes. Yes. With the restriction, though, that the ODP functionality over OData is not fully integrated into the mirroring replication at this point in time. That is on our roadmap. We will add that, just like Delta Q. But as of today, that's not available. Only table CDC, and the others will follow. There are plans to embed Theobald inside of Fabric. So I can't say too much about that, but we are partnering with Microsoft, and we're looking at additional integration options as they become available, including potentially UI integrations. It's a bit early for that, but that is definitely something we will look at and explore together with Microsoft. Do you see the solution as complementary or a replacement for SAP DataSphere? So I was actually at FabCon 2 weeks ago, and I had many customer conversations with customers that run SAP, and the majority, I think except one, I had about 50 or 60 conversations with the vast majority, with the exception of one or two, were not using SAP DataSphere. One customer, they had both. They had a limited use case for DataSphere together with SAP Analytics Cloud, or SAC, and they wanted to keep that, but that was not their main data store. So the majority of customers, I think, were definitely more interested in having an alternative to SAP DataSphere. And I asked many customers why, and the most common reasons I heard were complexity and cost. So I don't expect, from what we hear today from customer, that there's a lot of side-by-side deployments of two data platforms, SAP DataSphere with Fabric. Potentially some limited ones, where it makes sense for the customer, maybe together with SAC. Open mirroring is not dependent on SAP DataSphere or any premium outbound integration license, correct? Yes, that is absolutely correct. And that's important to know, because this premium outbound integration is costly for SAP customers. We are compatible, by the way, with SAP DataSphere. So if customers want to land data in SAP DataSphere first, we can do that. We didn't show this in the demo, but we have a destination also for SAP DataSphere. But for cost reasons, it's not very compelling for many customers to do that. Is there a specific function module for CDC? Yes. the CDC functionality is enabled through our own technology, which is based on a few custom function modules that you need to install in the SAP system.
Yeah, and maybe just to add on that question that asked about the SAP licensing. So for those of you who are on S/4HANA, since as mentioned before, our tools go through the application layer, and we're not going through the database directly. So to use the Xtract Universal tool, like Christoph showed, does not require the enterprise or data access license in S/4HANA.
There's one more question that came in. How is the latency impacted by the amount of changes made in SAP? So the thing to keep in mind is anytime you pull your deltas, it will take some seconds or maybe minutes to pull that delta. And that's a function, of course, of how many changes there were. And so we've had customers that had a lot of updates in certain transaction tables. And even within a small interval, let's say they would run every 10 minutes, they would pull, tens of thousands of records. That can run for some seconds or minutes, of course, and that's something you have to take into account in terms of how you want to space that out. But typically, and the table read is very efficient, so most of what we see is within seconds. But if you have larger amounts of changes in SAP or on certain tables, you want to spread out the extractions accordingly and make sure they don't run into each other.
Yeah, and I did see we had a couple of questions come into to our private chat area. So for those, we'll reach out after the webinar individually. Some of these are more specific to the specific customer or person asking. So
yeah,
for those of you who asked those, we'll get to you individually.
Yeah. And the other important thing to maybe to mention is that our table CDC component that we featured today has been around for 3 years now. So we did not just develop that now with mirroring. Mirroring is a great match with the table CDC functionality, that they fit together perfectly. But the technology has been around for 3 years, and independently, you can of course use this independently of mirroring, also to merge data or to extract near real-time fashion into other environments. So that capability is available. It works not just in the context of fabric mirroring.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to take that last question, Tyler? Yeah.
Yeah. So the question for fabric, the open mirroring, it it is a destination, a separate destination that Christoph showed in the demo portion. So for those of you who are familiar with our tools, you can add one destination or as many destinations as you need. But to answer this question on the pricing, it is priced similar to our other destinations as well. Yeah, and generally, if you are using open mirroring, if you don't already have the table CDC components, that's something that you would probably want to add as well. And that comes down individually to each customer. Yeah. Okay, good. A lot of good questions. There's still some time for a few more if there's any other last minute questions that might have come up. Just had one. Is there a trial? Yes, we do offer a trial, which if you that QR code here, I'll go back to the previous slide, so that QR code is available. Yeah, if you are interested in a trial, you can, if you scan this QR code, you can get to the download link directly, We're also happy to chat with you first to make sure you're set up with all the prerequisites, just to help you get started. So yeah, you can either download that now. We're also happy to chat with you before getting started to help you get set up. Yeah, but this QR code, like I said, will link you to the white paper, also a contact us link, and also the trial version download. If you are interested in doing the trial, we are available at no cost for the POC, right? So we're definitely happy to have working sessions. We definitely want to understand your scenario. All scenarios seem to be a little bit different, so we're definitely happy to work with you as you're going through it and provide our support and guidance.
Great.
Okay. Good. So yeah, thanks for all the good questions. Thank you all for joining. Again, like I said, you'll be getting an email from us as a follow-up to this webinar. That will include a link not only to the recording of the session, but we'll also include a link to the ODP session as well. If you do have further questions, really recommend, again, if you scan this QR code and use the contact us, you'll get directly to either Christoph and or myself, and we'll follow up directly with you.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate your interest and your time.
Yep. Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.